Was your bloodlust quenched on Saturday when Michigan went out and just absolutely annihilated Michigan State? 49-0. Yeah, mine wasn't either, especially just kind of given everything in this rivalry and just how absolutely imperative it feels to kind of just put those guys in their place after a lot of these things. Let's talk about it on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Sunday, Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Let's get into some of the things in Michigan's 49-0 victory over Michigan State. I mean, not in my wildest dreams in a way. And I see, I know there's going to be people out there that immediately say, Isaiah, I thought you said you weren't a fan. Listen, I root against Michigan State and Ohio State. I've told you that so many times. I'm rooting for the team. You know, I had to kill my Michigan fandom. When Michigan loses in general, I'm like, okay, even when they do lose to Michigan State and Ohio State, it's like it hurts in the moment, but then afterwards I'm over it. But it is a little bit more of a stressful situation when Michigan is playing those teams because I root against them actively, constantly, right? Like if I can watch one of their games, I'm rooting. If it's Indiana playing against either of them, guess what? I'm rooting for Indiana. That's just how it goes. So I'm on the field yesterday and I have no emotion. It's just kind of like, all right, you know, game's about to start. It's just any other game. And then as soon as they kick off, it's like that pit in my stomach, right? It's just that absolute pit. And it's like, okay, I need to figure out my coping mechanisms here. But that game went about as well as you could possibly hope for, right? Especially like I had said to some people on the sidelines that, you know, they were like, what are you looking for today? And my response was, I hope that it's kind of a similar experience to Nebraska and Minnesota. Maybe more so Nebraska than Minnesota, in the sense of Minnesota knew within 5 seconds that it was over, right? Because second play from scrimmage, Will Johnson pick six, and it's kind of like, all right, that's what kind of day it's going to be. I didn't want that for the Michigan State game. Now, I know you're probably sitting there thinking like, you know, hey, if you mentioned the word bloodlust. Why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want to just pile it on as heavy and early as possible? Because I wanted them to feel a little bit of hope. I wanted them to feel like, you know, to basically the way the game went, right? Like, all right, we got them 3rd and 14. Haha, they're not going to get out of this one. We have the best third down team in the country. Good luck, Michigan. Just for Michigan to convert on pretty much all of those. Michigan, I believe, was what? 5 of 7. I don't know. I've got the stats just so I don't sit there and just make stuff up, because I'm really good at doing that. Just pretending like I know exactly what it is. Third down conversions. Where are you? Okay. Oh, there we go. Michigan was 7 for 11. Now, keeping in mind that yet again, no starters beyond like the halfway part of the third quarter, but really just truly astounding, right? Because you watched them kind of get their hope. You watch the student section, MSU's first drive, they get a couple first downs. It's like, okay, here we go, we're doing it. And then Michigan's just like, no, never mind. You're not doing anything. You're not going to score a single point. And even when they got down into the green zone, Michigan turned them over. So pretty incredible that was how it went, right? It reminded me of Nebraska. That same thing. You felt the crowd was super into it. Now there was a lot of maize and blue in the stands, pretty sizable amount. Felt like being at Maryland, but it was one of those things where, you know, still there were obviously still a lot of Michigan State people here at the game, and just to see them kind of have that same reaction as Nebraska, just all up, and you know, hey, positive play or whatever, and then before you know it, suddenly Michigan scored a touchdown, and you just feel the place deflate. And then Michigan scores the Roman Wilson touchdown and the place deflates. You know, and then just one thing after another, just snowball effect. Michigan could have, and obviously it could have done this in a lot of games, if it wanted to put up 70 points, it could have. It should have been 35 to nothing at half. That I knew the 10-second runoff was coming with that penalty, but at the same time, it was clear that that shouldn't have been I mean, to me, it was clear it shouldn't have been a penalty. But also, why do I have an insane bloodlust for Michigan State? Well, in large part because as much as you see the Michigan State Twitter type people chirping and saying things of the nature of, it's Michigan that acts this way. I mean, I know I'm on the Michigan side of things. I've had my gripes with y'all throughout the years. No, I don't think that that Michigan fans behave nearly as badly as the rival fan bases act. As far as what I've seen, Michigan fans are much more of a self-hating group than anything, right? When things are good, things aren't good. I know every team's got an element of that, but Michigan fans are notorious about that. And when things are good, except for this year, it's kind of like, don't tell us that it's good, because that just ruins it, right? Like, you're just jinxing it. So for the most part, Michigan fans, as John U. Bacon often says, they're not happy unless they're unhappy. Michigan State fans, however, are insufferable. They are, as I've said multiple times, they are Mac from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They have a little bit of a megalomaniacal type of view of their own program. Heck, even after yesterday, I saw people saying, hey, the Oklahoma got shut out to Texas at the Red River Rivalry last year, and look what happened this year. Okay, that's really cherry picking a program that's in a much better state and was in a much better state than you are. You aren't Oklahoma. I understand they play games for a reason. You aren't Oklahoma, Michigan State fans. You don't have like this gigantic amount of talent. There's a reason why I laughed instinctively when Mel Tucker said this is the most talented team that we have. This is a roster that's been in decline for several years, and it's continued to. And that is partially why things went the way they went. We're going to continue talking. I could just keep going on this train of thought. We're going to do that on the other side of this. So we will do that in a moment. Before we do, listen, there have been so many times in my life where I feel like I knew what was good for me, but my brain definitely gets in the way. I lose. The first thing that happens to me is I lose executive function. I'm like, yeah, I mean, even like the last couple of weeks, I could take a nap. I could go for a long walk. Guess which one wins? And even falling asleep at night, my racing thoughts. That's usually the biggest thing for me. I am very underslept because my mind and body are active at night and not in the day. So have you ever felt like your own brain is getting in its own way? Well, you know what you should do, what's good for you, and you just can't do it. Therapy helps you figure out what's holding you back so that you can work on yourself instead of against yourself. There have been so many times that I've seen some therapists. I know a lot of people that have seen other therapists as well. And it's very clear that it gets you kind of into the right frame of mind and the right thought and all of that. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapist at any time for no additional charge. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnCollege today to get 10% off of your first order. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnCollege. We're going to move on here in just a moment, but before we do, listen, snap into action in this NFL season with FanDuel. That's America's favorite sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, overs, unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, so nothing I like more than Michigan beating Michigan State, especially with what's happened in the last week. Looking forward for Ohio State in that light as well, because it's what's weird to me. And don't do this if you're someone who watches or listens to this show. do not do this when you see like an Ohio State writer that says something you don't like. Like, just don't harass them, right? Like, there's no reason for you to do so. Like, chances are they're either like me, like relatively neutral, or honestly don't even care whatsoever. Like, I at least care. I might consider myself to be more of a neutral party. I mean, I'm not fully neutral, of course. I went to Michigan. It's impossible to be fully neutral. But like I said, when Michigan loses, there's no part of me that's devastated. Once upon a time, I used to have to drink myself to sleep, because it was just like I would be so devastated. And it's like, all right, let's really pile on here. Let's really self-medicate. If you're listening to an ad-supported version, then that's probably why you go to Betterhelp. But I did not cope well when Michigan lost. Now, honestly, like when they've lost to Michigan State, when they've lost to Ohio State, when they've lost to Penn State, when they've lost to whoever, it's just kind of like, okay, well, let's go do the job. There's no part of me that is sad about it or anything. So I get a lot of people in my mentions anytime, especially with this sign stealing story, right? Like we talked about that on Thursday and Friday. And I gave you especially once per person of interest, Connor Stallions became named in that report. I gave you reasons. I didn't necessarily spell every single thing out, but I think that you can read between the lines because I believe that you're all very smart. And so, but I didn't look at the YouTube comments because that's just a bad idea. But I did get tweets from rival fans that like to say certain things that like they mischaracterize something or act like I don't know what's going on or that I'm not in search for the truth. Listen, I know the truth of what's happened and what's happening here. And certainly learning more of what, say Michigan doesn't know or didn't know and what they're starting to know. Right. And, you get a lot of rival people that decide that like, I'm going to make fun of his name or I'm just going to try to tell him he's a terrible person because I don't like the team that he covers. So just don't be one of those people. If you see an Ohio State writer that's saying whatever, because even if it seems like, yeah, they're kind of a homer, they very well could just be playing up to the fans, right? They understand who essentially signs their checks. You know what I'm saying? And also just recognizing humanity and the people that are just trying to do a job. That said, some of the things that I've seen in the aftermath, it started with the sign stealing stuff, and it was obviously the rival fans and everything. You see it now, especially, right? You see the Justin Spiros of the world saying things like, doesn't matter, this is going to be vacated. It's not going to be vacated. I hate to break it to you, Justin. It's not going to be vacated. You see all these people and they act holier than thou, like, oh, our team would never. The funnier part to me is the Ohio State fans that say that when it's like, oh, we would never steal signs. Why do you think Michigan got good at stealing signs and obscuring their own sign stealing? The reason is you, Ohio State. That's why. But if you've watched or listened to this show for a long time, you've heard all about it well before this became a thing. But we'll get back to Michigan State here in a moment because obviously we want to talk about that. But it's this was going to be segment 3, and I just decided just to go right into it. Don't act holier than thou, and I think we should have all learned that, right? Even just with these awful like off-program scandals and all of these different things that like, hey, like let's not use all of these things as fodder because like look within thy own house. You know what I mean? Any program that's going to be under the level of scrutiny that Michigan currently is, like Michigan State, you just went through it anyway, right? You just went through it with Mel Tucker and all of this stuff. You might not agree with it. Just like I came to your defense when it came to all of that stuff, right? I said, like, listen, it's a he said, she said thing. But at the same time, his biggest crime was just not having better judgment, right? And, I had Ohio State person in my mentions being like, That's funny watching you flip flop. When Ohio State does something, you're all over it. When Michigan does something, you defend it. Ohio State, I've defended you on this very show multiple times, right? It all depends on the crime. I don't care that much about, I care more, and it might be unchristian of me to say, I care more to see Michigan State and Ohio State fans sad than their program having any kind of rivalry fodder. But it's because of their own doing, right? Like, and it's just a game. Let's just be honest and clear about it. It is a game. I know there's people who are gonna be, there's more than a game. No, it is just a game for the fans. And you might put money into it and all of that stuff. It's still just a game. You can put money into gambling, and that is still just a game. But nonetheless, all that to say, that is what makes this so sweet. That Michigan just clowned Michigan State in a way that neither team has done in the rivalry since 1947, when Michigan beat them 55-0. How wonderful is that? And Michigan could have done even more. And if things didn't start getting chippy on that last drive with the starters in, right? You had the 30-yard penalty, which is just wild, on top of a 17-yard run, a 47-yard swing. Then I would have been like, yeah, go ahead. And if it was any other, like if it was like a more sanguine rivalry game, I'd be like, yeah, just keep JJ out there. Get it to 49 at that point. But things started getting kind of out of hand, and it was obviously time to kind of close up shop, right? You don't want to take that opportunity to be like, how did JJ McCarthy get hurt? Well, he was just a simple drop back, and then there was a late hit where a guy put a helmet to the knee, and they were up 42 points, right? You didn't want to have to do that. So it was smart by Michigan to get out of that as well. But there were certainly some raised emotions, especially late in the game, and we'll get into that. Actually, I saw something. I'm going to share what I saw. Probably to Michigan's chagrin that I'm going to do so. And we'll actually get into kind of the stats and stuff here in the final segment. Before we do that, if you want to get into the comfort kingdom, then I've got just the thing for you. Birddogs is revolutionizing comfort when it comes to your pants and your shorts. Whether you're looking for something dressy for the gym, you're going out to the lake this summer. Well, actually, sorry, I didn't update my own copy. You're going out to the cabin this fall. Anything in between, Birddogs has got you covered. So you'll look and you'll feel better wearing Birddogs, and they allow you the versatility of going from the cabin to dinner. If you're getting in a cold weather golf course outing, you can get one of those nice, the nice little Birddogs cover up things. You've got their pants, which they're like Lululemon. They just fit way better. That's what makes them so great. All of those things. So go to birddog.com/LockedOnCollege and enter the promo code LockedOnCollege for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddog's.com/LockedOnCollege, or you can use the promo code LockedOnCollege. For a free Yeti-style tumbler, you won't want to take those Birddogs off. I can promise you. All right, let's continue on here. Let's get into a little bit more of the game here. I mean, JJ McCarthy, absolutely masterful. NFL caliber throws all day. The thing that kind of sucks about rivalries in some ways, I feel like Michigan fans, they do it too. I mean, but it's like if Justin Fields comes out for Ohio State and plays really well, it's like, okay, hats off to him. Tip of the cap, right? No one likes it, but it's like you recognize real, but it's funny because I still was seeing, because of course when it's 4:30 in the morning after I got done working, and what was the first thing I do is I go to RCMB because I'm a sadist and I really want to just kind of see what they have to say. So I go and, of course JJ still sucks. And then you see some people continuing to be like, I wish someone would have taken out JJ's kneecaps. And then there's the tongue-in-cheek, we're talking about Jay Johnson. You're real smart. Real smart. But obviously not going to get his due, but some of those throws were just insane, right? Like, you can sit there and say that, whatever you want, but like, some of those throws were in the tightest of windows that I've ever seen. Like, take what we talked about with JJ McCarthy and his throw, some of his throws from like the first couple weeks of the season. These were even better than that. Not just splitting defenders, but just like there's no reason why a defender couldn't make a play on it except for JJ put it literally in the only spot that it could be reached by the receiver at the exact time, right? Like a second late, second early, that thing's picked. But he made these throws that are literally perfect. And that is why JJ is suddenly leading in the Heisman Trophy race, right? Granted, there's no one else that's running away with it stat-wise. Caleb Williams has 2 losses now, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. Clearly, Marvin Harrison has kind of risen up those ranks and everything. But just the things that he did were just absolutely phenomenal. Extending plays, keeping his eyes downfield, evading pressure. As Jim Harbaugh even said after the game, like, listen, they had some dialed up where he was dead to rights, and yet he somehow got out of there. He said it's like Ooze the Magnificent. I don't know who that is, but really incredible. He went 20 for 26 on the day against a rival who you would think would be pretty well scouted. I mean, as good as you could really hope for. Defensively, obviously, the shutout, as good as you could hope for. Right. It's been a long time coming, and it's just even sweeter that you do it against Michigan State. Like, right. Put that nail down into the coffin. The thing that makes it, and I should have mentioned this up in the top, but I didn't, is the thing that makes it the sweetest of all. Right. The sign stealing scandal. So alleged scandal. And there's this whole deal where it's like, oh, Michigan can't win without this. Oh, Michigan can win. I still see people saying on RCMP being like, oh, it's because they knew the signs. Michigan State wasn't showing signs, specifically defensively, or offensively rather, but they weren't showing signs. They had someone going to the sideline, quarterback, someone else, linebacker, going and getting the signal and coming back. Well, not as much on the defense because they had to just adjust, but they weren't like really showing signs, right? And they used all the precautions, and yet Michigan still eviscerated them. Worse than anything. That's because it's, as JJ Watt said, it's called scouting. That's what it is. Michigan doesn't need to steal signs. That's where like the rumors that UNLV's Barry Odom is the one who put this out there is so hilarious, because it's like, because the rumor is he could not believe, and I don't know if this is true or not. I'm leaning towards yes based off of Chris Ballas being the one who reported it, but he could not believe that he couldn't get more than 7 points against the Michigan defense. Yes, that's just what happened, right? They didn't need to go and see you. It's just that Michigan's so good, and they have such good analysts, and they have such good development, and they have such a large, well-rounded team that is complementary that, guess what, UNLV? No, you're not going to, I don't care how high-powered your offense is. If you play Michigan, you're not going to do much better. Just like if you went and played Georgia, you're not going to do much better. If you go and play Alabama, even now, you're probably not going to do much better. So it just is what it is. But it just makes it that much sweeter in the sense of, hey, now you know that Michigan's not stealing signs in game unless they figured things out without Connor Stallions there in the game. And we're able to relay that. But I mean, at the same time, from an offensive standpoint for Michigan State, there were no signs to steal because the quarterback ran to the sideline every other play to get the play call for the next play or two. So it didn't really matter. And yet Michigan absolutely eviscerated. Obviously, got to note the tight ends were just absolutely masterful in this game. Sorry, JJ was 21 for 27. I said 20 for 26. But AJ Barner had 8 catches for 99 yards and a touchdown. Colston Loveland, 4 catches, 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. I feel better about Michigan not having clear, obvious number 3 receiver if you have 2 tight ends that are able to play the way that both of them are, right? Because it's not just J.U. Chesson and Amara Darboh and Jake Butt and Grant Perry. I mean, you can just say like, okay, AJ Barner and Colston Loveland are both Jake Butt. And as Jake Butt would tell you, they're, at least with Colston, he said like, hey, he's better, right? Roman Wilson gets in the end zone. He had 50 yards on 2 catches. Cornelius Johnson had 3 for 26. We saw Samaj Morgan get in late with 3 catches for 39 yards. I mean, it feels like it's ascending. That's the great news for this team right now, is it feels like the team, normally it seemed like you'd get to this part of the season and this is when the kind of the decline started, but they're getting better. And still, every game, and we haven't talked about this, every game it seems like multiple players on the other team are like, oh, no, that guy's injured. That guy's injured. Knock on wood, but it has not been Michigan. It really has been call the ambulance, but not for me. I'm not relishing other people getting hurt. I know that there's probably some rival people out there that are watching. Oh, no, it's not what I'm saying. And what I'm doing is I'm telling you that it speaks to Michigan's conditioning. Because that's, I think, the bigger part. Now, freak accidents can and do happen, but I can't recall a stretch. It's because usually, the post-game article I write first is whatever Jim Harbaugh says about injured players. We haven't done that yet this year. Hopefully, again, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. So, yeah, I wish Michigan would have scored more points. I understood why they didn't. I mean, even the backups did. And that's the kind of the thing. I'm sure that I didn't get this far into the rival sites, but if you wanted to, didn't want Michigan to score a touchdown with 8 seconds left, then you should have stopped it because they ran the ball. You just should have stopped it. You still had your first team defense. This is Michigan's third string that was out there by that point. Alex Ortiz actually was the 4th quarterback to come in the game. Just stop it. Right? They still have to run plays. They just can't take knees. If you don't want that to even happen, do like PJ Fleck did and start doing dive plays at the beginning of the 4th quarter and say, you know what, we're going to get out of here. Run the play clock all the way down. Run up the middle. Whatever you get, you get. You know? All right, that's going to do it for us today. We will be back tomorrow on Monday. That is the plan. Also, we'll be doing a live on Bleacher Report, so you can check that out. We'll probably do a show right after that is the plan, but we will talk. Also, I want to talk Ohio State, Penn State, because I was not impressed by either team, and kind of get into some more things there. And there's plenty to talk about as we're here in the bye week. We'll be talking to JJ McCarthy tomorrow as well. So lots to talk about now that we're in the bye week. So we'll get to all that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.